Hi everyone, come join me as I create my dream spring scrappy rainbow crochet tie front cardigan. It took me over a year to actually complete the cardigan, and I filmed most of the process, but I never actually filmed a proper intro, so I figured I would give you guys a little bit of context on how this project came about. I'm sure you've seen my inspiration for this project. It is the Deima Knitwear Bernadini Cardigan. So I had seen this everywhere on Pinterest, and I had also seen Paula from Aver P make her version on her channel. At the time, I had been working on a really big project for my friend and her 2 kids, which was basically a giant set of alphabet stuffies for them to play with. So that project was really empowering my shaping abilities, and I was like, I can self-draft anything now. Plus, I had a whole treasure trove of cotton yarn left over from that project, and this beautiful cardigan in the back of my mind. So the sensible thing to do would have been to find a pattern online, but like I said, I wanted to challenge myself and I decided to self-draft it. The very first thing that I did was create this paper cardigan. It had sleeves at one point, but it's basically just an idea of how the cardigan would be constructed. And then I actually made a sort of sample. This short sleeve gray cardigan was like a perfect test run, really informative before I started my scrappy one. I just used a value acrylic huge ball from Joanne. So for this gray cardigan, I made the body panel extremely wide. You can see there is quite a bit of overlap if I want it to fit the way I like it. And that is because I went off of the length of my starting chain instead of a gauge swatch. So the first thing I knew was that I needed less width for the body. I also attempted some neckline shaping, and I added the ribbing right here, which I actually think turned out perfect, but I didn't want ribbing for my rainbow one. I wanted more of a boat neck, so I knew I needed to adjust the shaping to start a little bit higher. Something interesting I didn't really know what short rows were, but I was hearing it all over the place, and I knew in essence that it meant the top of my sleeve would be a little bit longer than the bottom part of my sleeve. So when I added length to the sleeves and I reached the armpit, I actually switched to single crochets, which are literally shorter rows. So that's something interesting I did, and it did create a nice downward slope for the sleeves. I still want to steam block this and see if these sleeves kind of smooth out. But anyways, I knew that with my rainbow one, I wanted a little bit of a closer fit, so I decided to do some set-in sleeves. So yeah, I took some measurements of this sample to start with, and thank God I actually did create a gauge swatch for the first time in crochet. I had a ton of cotton yarn, I had this great sample, I had an inspiration photo, and I had a dream. And that is the context of which my rainbow scrappy cardigan was born. Now I'm going to take you back in time to about a year ago, and I hope you enjoy watching the process. The yarn I'm using is all these sugar and cream cotton, and the exact same but from Michael's Loops and Threads cotton that I had left over from my alphabet project. So I just arranged them by color. I'm gonna use this 5.5 millimeter hook, and this is like kind of my swap. It's a little more drapey and flowy because this is kind of stiff cotton, but I'm gonna use these little scrappy balls first and then move on to the bigger ones. It's time to do the math to figure out the panels. So this is all the way around the body. The cardigan will be folded like this. So now I need to create back panel and 2 front panels. Color that you see, there's 2 ends, one on either side. This row has brown, blue, white,
Then orange, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ends just for that row. I have since moved on to the front panels and the back panel. I needed to do a little sloping under the arms and then do a little sloping for the neckline. So I did that on both sides, and then for the back panel I had to do the opposite sloping for the back and then create a little space for the back of the neck hole. It took me like a week to weave in all of those ends, and now I'm trying it on for the first time with the ends all weaved in. Oh my gosh. I'm very, very happy. So this is the wide sleeve, and this is the tapered sleeve. I decided to go with the tapered sleeve, so you can see it looks a lot better. It still has some room here, so it's going to look kind of flared out, but it's just not so bulky. Just unraveled the other sleeve. I just frogged back the sleeve to the last 4 rows, and that's where like the tapered version starts changing. But I thought it was interesting to see how much yarn I used, so all of that was just for the half of the sleeve that I had made. Let's make the other sleeve now. Okay, we're back. It's been a very long time since I worked on this project. I think the last time I worked on it was in October, and it is now January. I took a break to work on my Olga sweater, and then I took a break from my Olga sweater to work on my gift knits, and now we're back. Last night I got all my ducks in a row remembering how I was working up this project, so let me show you my setup. So I'm currently working on the second sleeve. I had previously frogged this one in order to make a more tapered version. I have my chart over here that I created on Freeform, and then I have the previous sleeve that I made just in case I need to check what the heck was going on. And then I also have this photo of the sleeve before I frogged it. One of the hardest parts about the cardigan has been deciding which color came next. I'm really glad I have this photo because past me already decided on the next color, which is making working this up super quick and easy. And then over here I have all of my yarns in this bag that I'm just pulling out whichever color comes next. Finally down to the final few steps of this project. I have made a cute little to-do list that we're going to check off together. So we have 2 sleeves here. They have the ends all woven in, and they could be the right length, but we're just going to have to check. So my next step is to loosely seam them to the body so we can check in on the length. So here is the length of that. It's not long enough, it's not long enough. So annoying, I have to do more rows, more ends to weave in, but yeah, this is definitely too short. I want a nice elongated line. You can tell I was delusional about the sleeve length because I put on my to-do list to add rows if I need to. So let's go do that. Okay, we're done. I went ahead also and just seamed in the sleeve, so that's another check. And I love how long the sleeves are now. I think that's a good length. If they grow, that would be cool. Maybe like ½ an inch or an inch. If not, I think that will be fine. Also, I'm pretty proud of the construction of this right now. I've been like really over this project, working on it the past few days. Been working on it for too long, kind of thing. But when I put this on after seaming, I was like, you know what, I did a pretty good job. So I'm feeling good, especially considering this was my first attempt at anything like this. The next thing on my list is blocking the cardigan. So I'm gonna do a full wet block. I'm gonna dunk it underwater, pin it, the whole thing. I might try and get a little bit of extra growth, but nothing crazy, maybe like an inch, like I said. Here's the before of the cardigan so you can remember what it looked like. And we officially have a blocked cardigan. As predicted, not too much of a change with blocking. I'm really glad I added that extra length on the sleeves. They grew a teeny tiny bit and they are just sitting so perfectly. And then everything else just kind of like evened out. Those spots where I wove in the ends are just a little bit less scrunchy, and I'm really happy with the blocking result. The last few steps on our to-do list involve the edging and the ties for the cardigan. I will show you again the original inspiration, and if you zoom in super close, it does look like they did a single crochet edge. I'm not the biggest fan of single crochet edge. I feel like, and especially on the sides where it's not a row, single crochet often has like an uneven gapping when you do it on the sides like that. So that's why I opted to do an I-cord edging. I made this little swatch, and I will link the video tutorial that I followed in order to get this really seamless tie, apply the I-cord into the other side of the tie. So I want to apply the I-cord edge to the bottoms of the sleeves, and then for the closure of this cardigan, I want it to be just like the inspo, where there are two little ties right here and right here. So it will be worn kind of like this, and this part will just be loose and flowy. Plan is to start with this front top tie. So I'll create the tie, go around the neckline and create the other tie. The next one, I'll create the second tie, start it right here, follow all the way along the bottom edge and back up, ending in the second tie. And then I will just have this little space right here to apply a tiny little I-cord in between. I think it will enclose all this kind of unevenness that you see on the side. And yeah, oh, I forgot to mention that I am doing an applied I-cord with knitting needles. So I'm using 5.5 mil needles. It matches the 5.5 mil hook that I used. So let's go create this I-cord. Hopefully it doesn't take me a million years. I am going to Miami. So let's see if we can get it done before that trip.
Okay, well, I did in fact jinx myself in saying that I wanted to finish before Miami. That did not happen. I instead started this little iPad case, and I'm still figuring out the best way to seam it. Spoiler alert, single crochet does not work, but that's a problem for another time. In more important news, I finished my I-cord, and that also means the project is officially done. I'm gonna give you guys the full reveal in a sec, but I wanted to show you the I-cord in all its glory. Everything worked out really well, even these little in-between parts that I was a little bit worried about. They look clean, they look just fine. So we've successfully checked off every single thing on our to-do list. I finished the I-cord, I weaved in the final ends. I don't feel like I need to block it again. If you want to know a few more thoughts on the finished product and the process of making this, you can stick around for the project recap that I always do at the end. But I can't believe I'm saying this. After a whole year of working on this, here is my finished cardigan. Okay, I usually start off every project recap listing the new skills that I tried. So for this one, I gauge swatched in crochet for the first time. I did a double crochet foundation row. I created set-in sleeves. I actually frogged back the sleeves that I didn't like, which is not something I usually do. I did an applied I-cord with the ties. I've only worked an I-cord on the Sophie hood and the sailor slippers. And this was my first time blocking a crochet piece. Okay, some lessons learned from this project. This project was end weaving in boot camp for me, which I think was a little bit necessary. I always dreaded weaving in my ends in other projects, and now I'm like, okay, well, it can never be worse than this. Another lesson, I would probably always work top down when I'm self-drafting from now on, just to get the fiddly fit parts out of the way. Last lesson, I can make whatever I want in crochet. I can self-draft anything. And doing something ambitious really pushes your skill level. Let's talk about the yarn. So I gave this yarn an 8 out of 10. I have heard so many times how hard this yarn is to work with. And I have to say, I kind of disagree. I probably wouldn't use this for like a tank top, but I do like the look of the heavier weight in this context. In terms of matching my inspiration, obviously they used a finer weight yarn. I think that would have turned out great too, but I had this in my stash and I think this is a pretty good use for it. If I could change one thing in the yarn category, I would probably have added in a light pink throughout the cardigan, just to kind of lean into the pink of it all. I definitely would buy this yarn again, but I still have a ton of it left, and I also want to try some different cottons from like Hobby or Drops or whatever. Okay, the pattern. In this case, the pattern is referring to my own self-drafting skills. So overall, I gave my pattern an 8 out of 10. I will show a few examples of how I approached this. I'm happy with my method of drafting a pattern kind of chart thing. I will definitely use that again. For this project, I would definitely work top down if I were to do it again. I would make the back panel wider. The set-in sleeves look great, but they're like really set in. I also wouldn't have used the double crochet foundation row. I don't know if it was because it was my first time using it, but I just thought it looked so messy. I would just prefer using a chain, especially if you've gauge swatched, and it's no problem because the I-cord pulled everything together and cleaned it up. Okay, the process. The process I did give a 6 out of 10. I didn't want to go full negative because I still enjoyed making this. But like, first of all, I've worked on this for over a year. Every time I brought it out, there was a million balls of yarn. I would say 50% of the project was spent weaving in the ends, which was truly torture. I think one thing I would have changed is just done full row stripes of each color instead of all this scrappy nonsense. That would have reduced the end weaving in by so much, and I think it would have actually looked a little bit cleaner too. And it would also have cut down on the color selection process. It took up a lot of my time just sitting there and thinking, what should I do next? What have I not used in a little bit? And like thinking and deciding, which isn't always what I want out of a project. The actual crocheting portion of the process was really fun and easy though. For the finished project, I would give this a 9 out of 10. I think it totally holds up to the original inspiration photo. This was definitely a project where you do it for the project, not the process. It is a little much for my personal style. I also kind of love that about it, but I do think if I had just done the stripes, like I said, it would have been a little bit less cluttered and maybe a little bit more refined for my style. That's the only real issue I have with this. And I'm so happy with the tie placement, with the I-cord. I feel like this looks kind of medieval. I don't know why, but I like it. Anywho, this was a freaking crazy project. I am so excited to move on to new things. I do have a vision of using the rest of the yarn to create a skirt or some shorts, but the yarn might just be sitting in my stash for a while until I'm ready to jump into something with this yarn again. Thank you so much for watching this complete year-long process, and I will see you guys in my next video.